Um, it is now 9 a.m., so we're going to get going with our session for this morning. My name is Carmi, and right next to me is Dr. J. We're going to be facilitating the speakers and the content of our Symposium 10.1, which is the Broadening Access to Natural History Collections in short. So just a few quick housekeeping rules for folks online. Feel free to ask questions in the chat or during our designated question time. Each presenter is going to talk for about 10 minutes. We'll have 3 minutes after for questions, and we're going to try to keep it at time. I'll hold up some of these cards just so you know where you're at, if you're on stage, if you're presenting. And please make sure to utilize the microphones and to speak both slowly and clearly if you have any questions. And again, if issues come up, Jeanette and I are here. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Jeanette to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Carmi, and thank you everyone for joining us. This morning, our first speaker is Emily Inman, discussing evaluating the efficacy of informal education through museum pop-up displays at California State University, Stanislaus, at the Vashi Library.
Hello, everyone. And so I'm here to talk about the pop-up museum at Stan State. And so here's just a outline of what I will be. Here is just a outline of what I will be talking about. And so just a quick background on Stan State itself. We are a Hispanic serving institution. We are about 75% first gen students, and about half of us transfer over. And so Dan State is about 2 hours away from most everything. And so we are about 2 hours from the Bay Area, 2 hours away from the ocean, about 7 hours away from, I'm about 7 hours away from Los Angeles here. And so that means that we aren't near museums, aquariums, and things like that. And so in order to bring natural sciences to our campus, I started a pop-up. And so the library here, it is the heart of our campus, and there are cases here. Each case is not owned by the library. It is owned by individual organizations. And so we had to first contact each owner. Finally, somebody got back to us. And so we put our sharks case right here. And so we put that up in February of this year, and it got taken down about 2 weeks ago. And so we had a good chunk of time. And so here is the pop-up itself. And so everything here that is from the Sudan State elections. And so we have a hammerhead shark jaw here, and then also in this jar we have a swell shark, lemon shark jaws. We have a juvenile right there, and then we have a great white shark tooth as well. And so this case was up. And then we also had a sign here just telling everybody about the pop-up, and a QR code here to take a survey as well. And so the survey itself, it was RIB approved, so yay. And there were 6 total questions, and then you can see them right here, and how they are shown to the audience. And so there were 4 multiple choice, 2 response, and a total of 178 people took that as survey. So we had some very good numbers just to see how everybody felt about it. And so here are just some of the people that came and saw our pop-up. And so we have some children of staff members here, and then students as well. We asked them, if you go and see it, please send us a photo. So we had a few of them email me. So that was very nice. This one here is my favorite. It's a cute little shot. And so just of the students who took the actual survey, we had a good range. So mostly I would expect. So we have computer science, and we have liberal studies and health science down here as well. And then just in this small 10% range, we have art students. So a good swath took our survey. And so it's nice to see that it wasn't just us, so that it was nice to see that it's not just math, STEM students. And so just some graphs from what, and so we asked them, and so we asked them, how were things shown? A good number of students said that they said that things were shown in a interesting way. We got a couple people who weren't too enthusiastic about it, but we can't please everybody. It was our first one, so now we know what we can do to be better, more interesting to some. Obviously wasn't working for everybody. And then what also I thought was interesting was, would you bring someone to see via pop-up? We got a lot more likely and not a lot of unlikely on the side that they did not find it interesting. So I don't know if they were trying to come back and show friends. I was like, oh, come and see this exhibit. Maybe not in the most positive way, but everybody's, well, not every, but we got people to come back at least, hopefully, and bring friends. And so in the future, we would like to do a human evolution and show that in a more accurate way than it has been shown in the past. And then also we would like to use these cases to also show off our herbarium and other specimens as well, and then our local library we would like to be in talks with, but that's also a future project. And then that is all. Any questions? Thank you to my advisor.
I did not pay her to put that picture up there. Questions, please come to the podium.
Thank you for the talk. I'm a little sad to see the bias towards vertebrates. So would you have the opportunity to put, like an insect display at some point?
Yes, actually.
I'm not biased at all.
Yes. So insects, yes. So with our herbarium, we would like to do a inverts with our as well. So we thought that these cases here would be great because then we could just pin them just right into the wall there. So yes, we do have something in the works.
I've got a sort of related question. Why did you choose sharks? What was it? Because it was
so why
more
did we
appealing?
choose sharks? Well, I mean, sharks are cool.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of different shark items. So we had sharks in jars, and we had jaws as well. And they would be easily seen in that case. The case is, it's interesting to kind of like look down into. Most of the mammals we have are like flat, laid out. So the kind of like a dynamic of that case would not be as appealing, we thought. So that's why we chose sharks at first.
Thank you. It was a great presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've thought about similar things. I'm wondering, particularly with the skulls, have you reached out to like the anthro department in terms of incorporating it into a class activity?
Yeah, so we have not done that yet, but this is a part of a last activity right now. And so, but we haven't reached out to anthro yet to see if they would like to also use this as well.
I'll be talking about the classroom activity at 11. And anthro is involved. Sorry,
Oh,
Emily.
sorry. Anthro is involved, and we have reached out to them.
Morning. Just one question. Were there sort of conservation concerns about the specimens in these cases and places from a preservation point of view, from a community light, all that sort of?
Conservation point of view about the cases, how so? I'm sorry.
Just the specimens themselves. I mean, were there issues? Do you have conservators who are sort of wary of things going out in these areas?
So our collections is very small. So we don't have a conservator per se. The conservators are her and I here. And so we have paperwork of where they're going. And so we tried to keep it as So we try to keep everything like where we knew, like paper trail as much as we could for how small we
Yeah,
were.
I mean, I'm not in any way sort of.
Oh, no, no,
you know,
no, no, yeah.
It's just because I want to do similar things at certain places on our campus.
Yeah.
But I've had one or two of the other sort of staff of the Hunterian Museum I work in.
Yeah.
Saying, oh no, we can't put stuff there. It's not climate controlled. But then when I point out that our main museum space is awful from a humidity and everything else point of view,
Yes,
but
yeah.
they don't want to add new places to display stuff.
Yes, new places that aren't climate controlled, like
Yeah.
keep it all in one unclimate controlled area. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a concern because the case is also on like felt. And so we had to make like a base. So like if the case got knocked over, everything wouldn't get knocked over. And so we tried to keep that in mind as well, of like keeping everything as preserved as possible, just so things don't get broken or knocked over. And so we didn't really have any setbacks other than like these sharks need to be out of here because they're teaching X, Y, and Z at this time and we need them. So we had to have timing on things, but no one said, maybe not.
Thank you. That is the end of our time with Emily. The benefit is the Central Valley is incredibly dry in California, so we don't have humidity issues to answer that question. Our next speaker is Violeta Romero Mayen, speaking on Mexico's paleontological heritage for inclusive science outreach, taking fossils out of the collections.
Well, hi, good morning, everyone. So I am here to talk to you about this project that is still going on. We haven't finished, but we are working so hard. So when we see a fossil, the first thing that we want to do is touch it, but we can't. Yes? So we have our eyes and we can contemplate it. But what happens when these people, this population comes and wants to get close and know about these entities, these specimens? So unfortunately, there is a big gap in outreach conducted to these people, to this community. There is no exhibitions, there are no material for them. So there is a big gap that we have to fill. So this project, as a background, there was in 2020, back in SARS emergency, in COVID emergency, there was a first exercise that the Instituto de Geología did in the Museo de Geología, and a museum that is only for exhibition, and they made this great project where they, the people, the students that work there, that gave the visits to the people that come to this museum, they learned sign language. But this project stopped because of the SARS emergency, so it was closed for almost 2 years. So this is the first example that we have in this kind in the UNAM in Mexico City. But after that, looking and researching in literature in Mexico, there is no other example in paleontology museums. So also as background, well, the Colección Nacional de Paleontología is the greatest collection in Mexico of fossils and some others, the recent specimens, but it has the largest and oldest fossils collections in Mexico. So we house the best collections in Mexico. So taking this background, we in 2023 where is it? So this entity, SECTEI, is a government entity, the Secretaría Technology, Science and Innovation opened a call for grants, and we worked on this project that in English is Access to the National National Paleontological Heritage through an experience of outreach, inclusive experience. So our aim is to reach blind and vision impaired population by incorporating Tiflo technology. Tiflo technology is all that materials and technology that is used to help blind and vision impaired people to reach autonomy. Not only tactile experiences, but also technology, like, for example, computers or cell phones. So we are willing to reach this goal. So what have been our workflow? Well, this shows like a workflow, but it isn't, because we have been working in many stages, like all that we see here, but we are working with exhibition design from the beginning. So all these stages have been, this workflow is not linear. We have been going back in many times. For example, like the first part, well, that was very important. We had a sensitization courses. I'm going to talk this about. We had the work with collections. We had the 3D digitization, printing, and, well, all the exhibition design. Well, for the first part, we had some courses with some organizations, non-profit organizations. This is one of the main organizations that we have been working with, and is Libro Ciego, blind book. So this girl in here was teaching us Braille. We learned Braille, how to read, how to write it. So it was quite an experience and very intense course. And we had 2 different practical sessions, visits to this is the museum, the Museo de Geología, where we had this experience, and we went with blind and vision impaired people to recognize what are the limits of this space for these people. So we learned a lot. And the second one was a visit to the National Library in UNAM, where we learned how to use these devices to write Braille in a paper. So these are, this is Michelle and this is Omar Lezama, who they have been with us validating all our devices that we have been developing. So another part of the project is the 3D scanning. How we will be making Tiflo technology devices. So our proposal was to make scanning, to make 3D scanning and 3D printing of fossil specimens, because we can't get our fossils to the exhibitions. So we made this 3D scanning. This is one of the goals of the project, to get these scanners. So through this grant, we could get these 2 scanners and a 3D printer. So well, here are our the specimens printed, and this is our student, the student from industrial design that had helped us with the all the 3D model. And well, here is some of the specimens that we have printed. And because some of the fossils are only impressions, they are not tactile, we can't feel it. So our design team helped us to make the mesh like this. They just modified the mesh because this is only an impression. So this is our original fossil, and this is the result, where we can touch it. And in some cases like this plant, we can even see how the 3D scan have the numbers in there, and well, the fossil. Here it looks pretty good, and well, that is 3D, so there is no problem with that. And also, we want to make 3D replicas of some microfossils like this. Well, this is an ostracode, this is 2 forams. But here we are just in some troubles because these files are so big that our 3D printer can't read it. So we are just in solving that. And in the part of the exhibition design, well, we investigated many devices for exhibition, and at the end, we decided for this, that has many levels, and many people from many heights can reach them. And this is an example of our cards in wood. This is bamboo wood. So we also had a big research on what kind of material is good for Braille reading. And also, for example, in this from the top, we can see these are only holes. These are negative holes. So after validating this with the 2 organizations, they teached us that the best way to write the Braille is in positive, not in negative. So, and also, we need a certain distance between every point. So that's how they have been working with us and helping us. Also, we are developing these cards where we are printing, ink printing, the information, but also in Braille. And this is just for the conventional population, conventional people to sensitize about this, that we are not the only ones. There are other capabilities. And well, these are some devices that we are still developing. We are working on the life cycle of a trilobite and with many stages. These are paleogeographic maps here. And well, here we are working with ichnology fossils. And one last part that our project is developing is the workshop part, where we are developing some ink prints with these devices. We are making some vitrals with wood, and we are putting some colored translucent paper. This is soap, body soap. So this comes from when we had the first visit to the museum, to the Museo de Geología. Omar told us that blind people is bored of only getting something to touch. They need to use other senses. So this soap, this idea comes from Omar Lezama's feedback, and this is gonna be in different scents, and also the texture. So people will be able to print the footprint, for example, or we are gonna have trilobites and of units. Well, they are going to print whatever they want. And finally, the origami. This is our first try. It's not as pretty as it should be, but we are going better. And well, this is also planned to be done by blind and vision impaired people. So we are trying to involve many different technologies and different kind of work in these workshops. And our first presentation will be in Encuentro con la Tierra, the Earth meeting, or meeting with the Earth, on September 22nd. And we will see how it goes. And finally, after this, we think that our challenges will be that we need feedback from blind and vision impaired community, even though that we have been going through the project with them, with Omar, with Michelle. I think that the best feedback we can have will be from population, from kids, for example, that come to our exhibition. And we are looking for reach a wide community, not only blind and vision impaired people. And we need to develop more devices, but this takes a lot of time and a lot of learning from this. And finally, well, I want to thank SYM10, that is the entity that funded this project, and all these Libro Ciego, Incluye Más, and Library Vasconcelos that have been helping us through the project, and to the organizers of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Violeta. We are out of time for questions, so if you have any, please see Violeta after the talks or later today. Or during tea. Next up, we have Catherine Sullivan from speaking on Wisconsin's statewide community science project, a vision for connecting the public and biodiversity research.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kat Sullivan. I'm a PhD student at the Milwaukee Public Museum and the Department of Biological Sciences at Marquette University in the state of Wisconsin. And today I'll be talking about our statewide community science project housed at the museum as a vision for connecting the public and biodiversity research. So for many years, scientists have been speculating as to whether the current levels of biodiversity loss and decline is at the level of another mass extinction, and no other group faces more of these threats than insects, as many recent studies point out the pretty drastic and catastrophic declines across various insect groups. And because insects are so incredibly diverse, they are at risk by most of the consequences of climate change. And so to make things even worse, insects are also the most data deficient group compared to some other less diverse and more charismatic groups like birds and vascular plants, with insects having the fewest number of available data points per species. So this is why it's very important for the insect research community to engage with community scientists for research. And so at the Milwaukee Public Museum, we had hosted a variety of insect-themed projects in the past, and then in 2022, we formalized this in the Wisconsin Statewide Community Science Project. And with our partners across the state, different museums, universities, nonprofits, and government organizations, we've been working to connect people across the state in not only learning about all the great biodiversity across Wisconsin, but also how to actually participate in science. So I'm just going to briefly go through some of these projects. Even though I'm focused on insects, this is a very broad project with the general aim of enhancing Wisconsin's biodiversity. And so one of the first things we've done is create an iNaturalist project. And so this is really a collection of projects we have here. And I think as of yesterday, we had over 22,000 observations. Some of these were pre-existing projects, so we wanted to be aware of all the efforts that have already been going on across the state, and instead of building up from the beginning, to really kind of include those in our vision moving forward. And then some of these are more regional focused projects. Some of these are BioBlitz events, et cetera. So this has been a great way to highlight all of the great efforts that are already going on across the state. Additionally, we have these identification tools that we've been working on. This is something we made a few years ago using specimen images from our collection of butterflies of Milwaukee. And this is a great tool that we've been able to use and bring out into the community to help those who aren't experts in feeling confident in being able to identify insects and record them and participate in the project. So beyond that, we've also been working with Pollard Base, which is a standard observation-based survey protocol, originally developed for butterflies, but also useful for other groups as well. And this is great for collecting biodiversity data and metadata on the survey conditions so that you have that information about how the surveys were conducted, which is something you don't get all the time with museum specimens and other observation records on iNaturalist. So here, for reference, is state of Wisconsin and a map of our partners so far. And the method of this survey is pretty simple. You choose a route that can be surveyed repeatedly over the course of a season, multiple times, ideally crossing through different habitat sections, and then it can be repeated year after year, hopefully, to record changes in different populations. So why the Milwaukee Public Museum is choosing to do this as a framework, as I've already kind of highlighted, we have access to multiple data types here through our museum. So we are looking to take all of those records, put them together as a house for all of the biodiversity data that exists in the state. And so our framework is to take all the observation data, either from iNaturalist or other community science projects, take the specimen records that are in our own collection and then other collections, and then also incorporate these systematic surveys that we're implementing with the Pollard-based method. And so using GBIF and SCAN and other aggregators to fill in some of these gaps as well. We want to have an assessment of what records already exist and try to highlight where there are gaps that we can attempt to fill with community scientists. So just as a brief kind of preliminary data overview here, many people who want to use this data are familiar with GBIF, familiar with iNaturalist, and gathering all those records together. And we know this as a collections community that there's a lot of biases in all of these different data types. So I wanted to explore that a little bit more and see sort of what the situation is in our butterfly data set. So looking at just one group, the skipper butterflies Hesperiidae, there is a pretty big trade-off in whether we have specimen occurrence records versus observation records. And so we do have a pretty good representation in the specimen records for the state, but after the 21st century, it's pretty much all replaced by observations. And so this isn't necessarily a problem, but it shows why the museum is super critical in needing to be involved in these sort of efforts, because we do have access to that that rich historical record, and then moving forward in how we collect more data using a lot more of these observation-based techniques. So we see that there's already this kind of big time bias, but is there actually a difference in what species are being represented in these different data sets? So taking a look at all the butterflies for the state, I took the specimen records and the iNaturalist records, and then also threw in the survey records just from the past 2 seasons to compare. And out of 124 total species that have been recorded in Wisconsin for butterflies, there's only 40 that are common to all 3 of these data types. And there's varying levels of overlap, even between the specimens and the observation records. There are many unique species that we found. And so this is, of course, very interesting. We want to know why there's differences. We want to know, are these an artifact of sampling, or is this a true biological change? So kind of our vision for moving forward after these first few years of getting the project started is to use the Wisconsin Butterfly Monitoring Network, which is using that Pollard-based protocol to increase sites and data each year. So as I mentioned, we're still starting out. We have about 10 partners across the state working on getting that geographic distribution a little bit more complete. But one of the common applications for using this data is using species distribution modeling and estimating richness across the state so we can identify ecosystems and habitats in need of conservation. And so here on the right is just a map, and all you need to worry about here is that this is a prediction of richness across the state. As you can see, we have this big green spot here that is missing in our surveys. So hopefully we can get that filled soon. And then going back to the question of occurrence data versus observation data, it's really important to, again, understand how this data is being used by the wider research community. And again, sometimes these two get conflated. And by splitting apart the occurrence data from our specimen records and our observation data from iNaturalist, even though our spatial coverage here is about the same with the black dots representing records, we're getting kind of different answers from our models. And so this is something that I'll be working to reconcile moving forward with these Pollard-based surveys. So in the rest of my time, I just wanted to provide some more suggestions and some of my experience from working in community science at a natural history museum. And so going to iNaturalist, I think many people are aware of how powerful of a tool this is with, I think, over 200 million records now. And so feedback whenever possible is really important. So you can kind of choose to use this as a free data dump if you want, but we've really found that the more you put into the project, the more you get out. So by making these specific projects, providing identifications and your own expertise in these records that are being posted by community members can really help to improve your data and get more data collected from the public. So again, creating projects, engaging these super users, those people that somehow are always outside taking pictures of things and trying to engage them for more specific research applications. And then also using this to host different BioBlitz events that don't necessarily need to be happening in person. They can be virtual BioBlitz events. And then for engaging community members and trying to really get at this question of how can we broaden access to biodiversity and fill these gaps in knowledge, found that for our butterfly monitoring project, providing training and direct contact as an expert with guided butterfly walks and surveys is crucial to getting any sort of engagement. And having multiple options for data collection and entry is great. So some people prefer their good old pencil and paper, some people like to take pictures, and some people like to use the apps. So really being flexible in how you allow people to contribute data is important. Again, working to create those identification tools for common species in a local area, especially with insects, can be pretty daunting for non-experts to try to get into this world of recording observations. And then lastly, I wanted to point out that a lot of times in our collections, the collectors are kind of the original community scientists. And so sort of leaning into that as a natural history museum and trying to reimagine different roles for volunteers to help with, whether that be transcribing and inventorying the collections, identifying photos, or also working to collect more specimens. This is a really great place for us to try to explore some of those options. All right, and with that, I'd like to thank the Milwaukee Public Museum for funding this project, all of our community partners across the state, our summer intern staff that we have, and I'd be happy to take any questions if there's time.
Thank you for that. We do have time for one short question if anyone has any.
Have you engaged the master naturalists?
Yes, so some of these partners that we have across the state already had relationships with the master naturalists. So we have a group that's in northern Wisconsin that has a really strong cohort of master naturalists. So we're hoping to kind of expand that across the state more. But yeah, they've been a great group to work with.
Thank you. Catherine? Next up, we have Okion, a community collaborative terrestrial biodiversity monitoring network in Okinawa, Japan by Masako Ogasawara.
Thank you. I'm Masako Ogasawara, and a specialist and from Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. I'm gonna give this presentation together with Dr. Mayuko Suabe. She's sitting here. And Okion, Okinawa Environmental Observation Network, Okion, a community collaborative terrestrial biodiversity monitoring network in Okinawa, Japan. Today, there are many environmental issues around the world, such as climate change, habitat loss, and the spread of the invasive species. Biodiversity monitoring data and natural history collections are important resources for assessing the impact of those environmental problems. However, on a global scale, biodiversity research is biased by taxon and target areas. The situation is similar on the small scale of Okinawa Island, with a bias toward research in northern part of Okinawa, such as Yambal Forest. The Okion project is a long-term terrestrial monitoring network that has been continuous from 2015 and led by a local university, OIST, us. Biodiversity on the main island of Okinawa is documented in a variety of ways, including insect collection using Malaysia traps, soundscape data using acoustic recording equipment, and wildlife image data using automatic cameras, local weather data such as temperature and humidity, and the various types of ecological investigate. The 24 field sites on the main island of Okinawa covered various of land use categories, from forest area to urban areas. In this project, important to us is collaborative networking. Both researcher networks and the local networks are included. The role of the research network is to work with the university to set the direction of the project and make suggestions to maintain the quality of the data. The role of local network is to provide access to research site and work with the university to develop outreach opportunities using this project. One of the goals of this project is to use finding and expertise from the research to benefit the local community. Here's 3 cases of how the outcomes from the biodiversity monitoring project can be applied. Today, I talk about not only the application of the academic research, but also how we can use those outcomes in environmental education and practical applications to local social issues. First, about the academic research. Okion originated from a lab that studied biodiversity, but is now managed by a department that supports research across the university. Researchers, both internal and external, use the Okion data to publish ecological and taxonomic research. For example, the unique long-term aspect and the barriers of land type of our data are being used to examine how differences in human land use affect ecological response, including the seasonal of ants and soundscape before and after natural disasters such as typhoons. Research is also underway to use metabarcoding to identify new insect species and analyze biodiversity from large samples. If any of you are interested in utilizing Okion data for collaborative studies, please let us know. Next, an example of environmental education. Using our ant survey technique, many researchers working with ants have developed an ant survey protocol by using our knowledge and human resources. Okion shared its survey protocols with local high schools to support school education and the interest in science among students. Specimen samples obtained from high school activities are shared with Okion, allowing high school students to participate as community science. Similarly, the ant survey protocol are further turned into public event and offered as an environmental educational program to local resort hotel, museum, survey site managers, and others to provide opportunity for the public to experience environmental surveys. Finally, regarding practical application of research, Okion's data, human resources, and expertise are using to help solve the local environmental issue. For example, automatic cameras have recorded various animals, including invasive species like mongoose and feral cats. We've been working with Okinawa Prefecture government and the Ministry of Environment to quickly report the invasive species or disease carrier we spot. We are also developing an AI system to automatically detect those species using camera images with a team that includes mammal researchers and the Ministry of the Environmental Officers. In the next case, we provide control method and the monitoring when invasive browsing ants become established in Okinawa. The project was conducted in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment, other local university, and municipal officers, and as a result, succeed in reduce the density of the population. In Okinawa Prefecture, a network community for the management of the invasive ant has been established, and Okion is participating in this network as a research institute. Each organization shares information and works together to effectively implement measures against invasive ants. In addition to those cases, a research project is being planned to propose how to introduce protected area in Okinawa using Okion's network as a model area. In this way, the Okion was designed from the beginning as a network project, and the monitoring result can be used not only for the academic research, but also for education and solved local issues. In general, a major challenge in biodiversity monitoring is how to keep it going. Reasons for this include organizational structure, result sharing, and the recent academic culture, and funding. In areas where biodiversity data is often lacking, community-based monitoring can be the key to solve this challenge. Or in other words, monitoring is more likely to be sustainable if it is carried out collaboratively by local people, government, and the research institute, and if ecosystem services are directly linked to the local community. Okion, introduced today, has continued as a network project involved researchers, and the local community. Established network to link researchers and the local communities could be one way to make biodiversity monitoring sustainable. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone involved in this project, especially to our field team member. And thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Masako. We do have time for questions if anyone has any. Yeah, you can go ahead and approach the mic with your question.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Jerome from Taiwan. It's a very interesting topic and it's very wide in depth. It's very inspiring. I'm interested about how is the research team sharing the data with the local community? Like, do you have a centralized database that all
Yes.
stakeholders, all members can access?
Not all members can access, but main technician is working for the data. And when we collaborate with local people, me or Mayuko, we always contacted between the specialists and the local people. We are always door to the local community. So yeah, we because our institute, so many foreigner is working here our institute.
Yes.
So some people of course speak Japanese, but not all people. And so many researchers outside of OIST working for this project. But local people of course doesn't understand much English. We have to explain for the Japanese for them. So we are the door to local community.
Okay.
So we do support research, but we do, do like community collaboration, project.
Thank you. I asked this question out of the curiosity of like in this kind of community, working with researchers and the local community. I wonder how important is how important for this project to go on for the local community to access the data. So in some cases, it seems like local community doesn't really care about the data, but
Yes.
some cases they do, and I'm curious about how this is going on in Okion.
Yes, of course, depends on the person, Some like museum curator care about more research side. And some people is just enjoy the science, outline. So depends on the situation or depends on the person, we, arrange, how we share the things with them. Of course, we cannot share everyone to the, every data, but we planned and of course we talked with manager and then, depends on the person or depends on the situation, we changed how we do. And it works now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Megan King, a model for experiential learning and broader educational impacts in collections, creating an herbarium army for Rutgers University students.
Okay. Let me just make sure I know how to work. Okay, it's very easy. All right, so I'm Megan King from Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey in the United States. So I'm glad that you all could make it to my talk. I know there's some other really interesting talks and workshops right now that you'd much rather be at. Anyway, so I'm here to talk to you about a model that was developed at Rutgers University, but maybe your institution can adapt it to your collections, hopefully. So specifically at Rutgers, we have experience-based learning. It's a credit requirement for our students that are in the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences. So it's not across the whole university, it's just this subset. And they're required to do 3 credits of experience-based education. So they actually register for these credits just like they would a course at our university. And it includes, they have to do 3 credits by the time they graduate. It's about 126 work hours. And they work with a faculty advisor or they work with a collection like ours. And it can also be an external internship. So they can work with us where it's not a paid internship, but they can also do external internships where they are paid. So Rutgers really finds that this is important to the experience and the development of our students, and it makes them more marketable for their future career paths. So it gives them the experience. A lot of students too, we get maybe aren't even interested in plants at all. They come and work in the herbarium and all of a sudden they're a sophomore or a junior that is now changing their major. So it really helps them to gain the experience to know what they like and what they don't like. And of course, build workplace and team skills and life skills just in general. So our herbarium army, which we coined in 2016, started with students from a class in fall of 2015, which was a course taught by Dr. Lena Strew, which is plant diversity and evolution. She connected that she had these students who were interested in plants and a herbarium that really needed some help and students that were very engaged. And so she merged the two together and said, let's offer this internship opportunity. The students can get the credits, they can get the experience, and our collection can get some access and help. So it started with a small cohort. I was in that original cohort. Within a month, I was ready to give up my bakery job. I wanted to just do everything collections management. I wanted to work with the specimens all the time. I wanted to learn everything possible. So I did indeed give up my, I think I gave up my bakery job. Maybe I kept it. I was offered 5 hours a week for the starting like through the summer. And then I became the collections manager in that fall. And it was part-time work while I was an undergraduate student, most rewarding experience of my life, as you can tell. And so it started with very minimal equipment. We actually only started the internship with reorganizing our collection into a new, yeah, I'm gonna look down now. Just trying not to do that, classification system. So we went from a really old classification system into a new one. So it was specimen by specimen, cabinet by cabinet. It took years. And we pulled together some equipment that we had at the university and then were able to apply for NSF grants, which then got us more training, more opportunities, some funding for our students, funding for barcodes. And so what I haven't told you yet is that our collection is basically a medium-sized herbarium. So we have about 200,000 specimens made up of different groups. So it's primarily vascular plants, but we do have bryophytes, we have fungi, we have mosses, and algae. And we're primarily a regional herbarium. We thought at one point before digitization, they were like, we have to be more than 70% New Jersey specimens. We were wrong. We were very wrong. We have tons of specimens from across the United States and across the world. So our interns, which I have in the past had anywhere from 3 interns a semester up to 30. That was during the pandemic, so it's much easier to handle 30 interns when you're virtual. But typically there's around 10 students every semester that work with us. So, and they learn everything. I want them to have the ability to change tasks when they get bored, to learn something new, to really leave with a well-rounded opportunity, not that they spent 126 hours mounting plant specimens. So they get a broad experience, anything from mounting and repairing to barcoding and updating taxonomy, reorganizing, which I can't tell you, no matter how much you train them, I still find a specimen out of place. Every semester I go to train my new batch of interns and it's like, that's not supposed to be there. So it's great because then they learn from the previous students and I learn from the previous students. Imaging, filing, and then again, they do have a virtual component which we heavily relied on during the pandemic, which is transcription and georeferencing. So during the pandemic, between spring of 2020 to spring of 2021, I had 65 students. At the time, I was very fortunate. I did have a couple of paid interns, which was really helpful, but we got so much transcription done. Like, it was amazing. But of course, they came back after the pandemic, and the last thing they wanted to do was work on a computer. So, I mean, the mount and repair room, there's like, oh man, you're already in there? Oh, I wanted to mount today. So there's like a fight sometimes for tasks like, all right, you've been doing that for 2 hours, let's switch. So, but I encourage them, move around. If you like something, you're good at it, stick to it. But if you want, move to a different task. So after about 8 years of this work and the pandemic, we were able to update almost our entire herbarium collection for taxonomic updates. This does not include some of our bryophytes, which we are working on still. And then it was, of course, as I mentioned, reorganized into a new phylogenetic classification system. We are 99% of our herbarium is digitized. That's like, I mean, I want a round of applause for myself. Thank you. But this, of course, does not include the backlog. So, but it is a lot of, I say we're digitized, we're fully digitized, but it does mean that we still have a lot of transcription work to do. So now I'm enforcing that they have to do at least 1 hour of transcription a week. But it is for all of our collections. And then, so 55% of our specimens do have locality data. It might be minimal, but it's something, it's searchable. And then there's just a small percentage of georeference because that's much harder to train, and I really need my students to be good at transcription before we do georeferencing, and I'm not that great at it. And so all of our information is available on iDigBio, GBIF, and our home portal, which is not written right here, but that was the project we were a part of, is the Mid-Atlantic Herbaria Consortium, which does send out information to GBIF and iDigBio, but the Mid-Atlantic Herbaria Consortium will have the most updated information. So career skills are gained by our interns, right? So it's things that you're thinking they gain and things that you couldn't possibly imagine. I can't tell you how many students now, especially the last like 2 cohorts, that are like, what is cursive? How do I do that? And by the end, they're like, well, if I didn't learn anything, I learned how to read cursive handwriting, which is, I'm like, okay, cool. So they start to get a better understanding of biodiversity. They come into this room full of cabinets and they're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. But then they open the cabinets and they look through these specimens and they're like, wow, this specimen's from Ecuador. I didn't know things grew this big. It's really incredible. And they come up to you and they bring you specimens. They're like, I just wanted to show you this. And you're like, yeah, that's awesome. Geographical awareness. Like I have to say, I even learned this. I was like, oh, that country's there. No idea. So they get a more of awareness of where states are, what's next to each other, what countries exist, where they are on the globe. And georeferencing really, like when I had a few students, they focused on areas that weren't familiar to them. And they're like, I know everything about this small town in Idaho now. And it's a good way for them to learn time management. So, right, they're managing their time with classes where they have to show up. But this is one of those things where I don't require them to show up, 8 o'clock in the morning till 10. They can't because they're in classes. So they have to come when they can fit it in their class schedule. So it kind of sticks to them like, oh, if I don't work my 3 hours this week, I'm screwed for next week because then I have to do 6 and I might have to come in on a Saturday or a Friday night when I want to go out. So they really are sticking to these time schedules, and they do enjoy that it is flexible within their classes. So some of them will even just be like, I didn't have lab today, so I came here to work. Record keeping. They learn to keep track of their hours and what happens when they don't. It keeps them organized. It shows them how to be organized because collections are very organized systems. And then of course they learn the basic botanical taxonomy, morphology. They learn about evolution and ecology, which relate back to their coursework. And of course, curation and digitization of specimens, which is the most important part. So we get a lot of student feedback. We require them to do 2 reports. One is a taxon report and the other is an experience-based report. In their experience-based report, we tell them to, ask themselves some questions. What did I learn from this? How could this help me in my future career? Where do I see myself going? And how has the herbarium helped me get that path? So, a lot of the students mention that they really want to gain a sense of purpose. They want to belong somewhere. They're really afraid of making mistakes. I have to mention that in our herbarium, there's very little that I can't undo if they make a mistake. So, and I kind of try to do that where I don't give them something that I'm like, oh God, if they do this, I'm never going to be able to reverse it. So, and I let them know, don't feel like you make a mistake and you can't come to me with it. You have to feel like you can, because I can reverse it. Let me know, because otherwise they'll be like, I'm going to go hide this in a cabinet somewhere so that Megan doesn't see it for 4 years. So I want them to come to me, and building that connection with them, making them feel comfortable, making them feel like they can ask the questions is really great. So now a lot of these students have gone on to their classes, and now they're like, I sit in the front row, I ask all the questions. So, and they develop more critical thinking, they become problem solvers, they challenge themselves. And they definitely work outside their comfort zones. Like I have some students that are like, I don't want to mount anything, I don't do arts and crafts. And then they're like, maybe I'll do that. And they try it out, and then I can't get them out of there. And of course they're getting a caring, a satisfaction from the work that they're doing. They're telling other people about herbaria, they're telling their parents, they're telling their friends, and then I get 10 more applications the following semester. And they find this like support and comfort in being in this space. It's quiet. It's not the rustle and bustle of college campus. It's more like the library without all the other students studying. So they come down there, some will just come and do their homework assignments. And then they start to understand a little bit more about time, especially mounting old specimens. They read through the newspapers, and they're like, you could get a suit for like a few dollars, leather boots. Like it's really interesting. And then they also see a lot of like former political issues too. It's great. So I talked a lot about the who, the why, and what they're, and the students. Now I kind of want to give you a little bit of a toolkit, right? So this is kind of what it looks like for us, my timeline. It's adaptable, of course, but so about a month before applications are due, I send out a little information sheet that says to the students, this is the herbarium, this is what we do, this is the things you can be involved in, and then I attach an application to it and provide it to them. So then the applications are due. We do a review of the applications. We have them submit their CV. We do require that they have like basic biology. If they have a plant course, even better. But we don't push away people that don't take plant courses. So if they look like they're going to be engaged, they're really interested, because there is a little fill-in in the application that says, why do you want to do this? So if that's good, we're like, I don't really, plant class, you don't need that. And then, so 1 month prior to the semester, I'm doing scheduling for training and trying to get them to build their schedules. We begin training in January when our semester starts, as an example of what we would be doing in the upcoming spring semester, since I'm not taking new students this semester because I'm here. And so we can do some training virtually and some training in person. Most of it has been in person recently. And then once they get that training, I do training for about 2 weeks. And once they've come in and they've worked with me a few times, I monitor their independent work. So I kind of let them go on their own, and I'll walk by and check on things. And then I, of course, am constantly saying, ask me questions, ask me questions, ask me questions, I'm here. Then, of course, they have their reports to do. And then we have our work to do, which is grading. I have to say most of our students get an A. So then I do have a complimentary online course website. Rutgers University uses Canvas. I'm sure some of the other universities have very similar programs where you can kind of make modules. And so I time record on Google spreadsheets, because our institution does allow our students to have access to Google Drive. So I do all of our time recording, all of my like tracking their work. So how many specimens they're mounting, how many specimens they're imaging, because I need that for reporting for projects and also asking for funding. And so that general information is put also on Canvas, because once they're registered, bam, they're populated into that online course. So you could do this a different way. You could do it through a website or however you want to do it at your own institution. And the contracts are up there, which they have to actually sign an initial and says, I will not mishandle the specimens. So that way, if anything were ever to happen, to be like, you see here, that's your John Hancock. So, you hold them to it with that contract. I've never had to do that. But it ensures that they have read through, and you could say, refer to that document. And then I also do have some protocols up there and some training modules. If they're doing virtual work, I have like georeference training, virtual training session that was recorded previously. And I say, you have to watch this. Then you have to meet with me, and then we get to go through it together. And then you get to practice, I get to review, and then you can do it on your own. And then, of course, their assignments. So these are, for the experience report, these are some of the questions that we asked to try to get them going on the report. It's not a big, long report, they're experience reports, so they're very, great when it comes to writing, because they're like, oh, that was easy. But I do engage them to try to say, write in something in there that was challenging. Write something that you were like, I located this specimen that was collected at my neighbor's house probably in like 1910. And they, you know, they write a little story about it, or they'll put something in there about a collector they invested some time into. So beginning your own internship program. So for us, we utilize our college, undergraduate students, but these are some other, we've had volunteers. I had a high school student reach out to us, but we're not prepared to do that yet, but I would love to engage some high school students. You wouldn't believe how like engaged they could be if you haven't ever had, someone in their teens who's really, really into like botany, that's like, or collections in general. You're like, whoa, future curator. And include students from different backgrounds, different majors. We've had computer science majors. It's great. When I have a problem with my light box and my camera, I turn to them and I'm like, fix, please, can you help me? And it's great. It's really great to have people, different ideas. I've had history majors who can tell me a little bit more about the history of our specimens. They go down a different rabbit hole. So really, really engage. Don't be afraid to be like, oh, you don't have plant experience. You're not, or entomology experience. You can't come work here. For those of you that aren't affiliated with the university, try summer programs if you can. Just, open your doors to people outside. I'm promising you that the work that our students have done, we could never have done. The 25,000 hours, I think I calculated it out, and it's like a lot of money. And it's like all this work is so great, and you're not just getting like, okay, yeah, great, I got that done, but you have students now that, I have a student that went and is working at Arnold Arboretum in Harvard. I have one that's at Missouri Botanical Garden, a student that went to do his PhD in systematics. Like this is like, it's great. But so you can work with your local college or university, high schools, societies, or in my case, it would be native plant societies, the local societies, master gardeners, those kinds of programs, even like senior citizen groups. I know my grandmother was an artist. She would have loved to come and mount plants. And then just reward them, positive reinforcement to anybody of any age. It's just, when I get a pat on the back, I'm like, best day ever. And you can do things, I've seen people do like wall plaques of like their volunteers. Really, really cool. You get to come in the morning and see your photo up there. And when you've maybe, finished your internship, you come back and visit and there's your photo still. And goals. My students love goals. Like, we want to digitize another 10,000 specimens, or like, yep, done last week. There are, however, some challenges. So I'm not gonna, say everything's perfect. Accountability. Sometimes I do have students that fall behind. So keeping them on track without being their mom is a little difficult sometimes. And then scheduling can be difficult outside of my schedule. So what I try to do every semester is I tell them, these are the times I'm available for training or meeting. And I give them a broad range of those times. And then they can pick and choose which ones they'll come to, and they sign up for those times. We have a problem with accessibility in our collection with the fact that we're in a basement. Shocker, I know, right? Basement, no elevator, stairs, right? So sometimes there are accessibility issues for our collection. And then, of course, quality control. So always making sure that I'm picking up the specimen. And last but not least, something I didn't put in here, but the difficult specimens that get left on my desk for Megan to do have now become a cabinet of things that Megan will deal with later. Oh, so if you didn't, there's a QR code. It'll also be on the last slide. I'm probably running out of time. Oh no. Yeah, you're a little bit over. Okay, I'll really quick read or take a picture. Importance of having, students, fresh minds, fresh ideas.
I'm sorry, but we do need to move forward to stay on time. I'm sorry.
It. You're good.
Thank you. Please be sure to talk to Megan afterward if you have any questions. Thank you. Our next speaker before tea time is Allison Vaughn, harnessing local knowledge to enhance geospatial collecting data.
Before we start, can I just say something? The QR code for Megan's talk leads to a placeholder where we will upload lots of resources, but they're not there yet.
Thank you so much.
Whoa. What have I done? Is that me?
Thanks, everyone. I'm Alison Vaughan, the Collections Manager at the National Herbarium of Victoria, which is part of Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria in Melbourne, Australia. Today, I'm going to talk about one of my favourite plant collectors and the way in which we engaged her local community to help transcribe and georeference her collection. So this is Eileen Ramsey, and she was 62 when she started collecting plants in 1949. She's pictured there with her dear friend and collecting companion, John Plant. So Eileen collected plants and John Plant collected insects. He was an entomologist. So they would go out together each week if they could, sometimes more often, and they would collect within about 50 miles of Eileen's home in Redcliffs, which is up near Mildura, which is a large-ish country town in the far northwest of Victoria, so down where the red dot is on the map of Australia there. So this land is known as the Mallee, and it's named after these multi-stemmed, quite small eucalypts, which dominate the mostly flat and very sandy landscape. Now this land is the land of the first peoples of the Millewa Mallees, so the Lachi Lachi and Yintate peoples. And given that Eileen was sort of working within this Western botanical framework, it's important, I think, to note that the plants of this area were known and understood and related to by those peoples for tens of thousands of years before Eileen started collecting and, as she would say, discovering new things. So Eileen's motivation when she started collecting in 1949 was to create a reference collection for a local museum that could be consulted by visiting other botanists or the local community. She recognised that the Mallee landscape was rapidly changing. It's an area of huge amounts of fruit production, it still is, and at that time, sort of mid-century, it was being cleared rapidly for irrigated vines and other fruit blocks. So Eileen herself managed a fruit block, so there was a little bit of a contradiction there, but we all have those. So Eileen really wanted other people to value the beauty of the landscape that she loved so much. And she did write that she wanted to put the Mallee on the map, botanically at least. So she succeeded in this aim, and over 10 years of plant collecting, she put together a collection of about 1,000 species. It was described as the most complete collection of Mallee plants in existence when it was donated to that local museum in 1960. And it's really significant because of the time that she was collecting, because a lot of that vegetation has changed, a lot of it's gone. And she collected several plants that were new herbarium records for the state. And there are probably 3 or 4 species that she collected that are now locally extinct or extinct in the state. And that's really a factor of her going out so often, because she went out each week. There's a lot of ephemeral plants up in that part of the world where it's so dry. So just that dedication really yielded some fantastic results. So she did end up donating it to the museum. The Mildura Museum is now known as the Mildura Art Centre. And it was on display there for several years before ending up in the vaults in the basement. And it stayed there for decades. And it wasn't until 2016 that it was transferred to the National Herbarium of Victoria, so to preserve it for future use and to make sure that scientific information could be available to the public and the research community. But when it was donated to us, the Mildura City Council really wanted us to organise some public outreach. They wanted to teach the local community more about the collection and about the local flora. So this eventuated as an exhibition at Mildura Art Centre, and the exhibition photos are a bit gloomy just because of the gallery light levels, so sorry about that, it's a bit hard to see. And this ran for 10 weeks in early 2021, sort of in between some COVID lockdowns in Victoria. We had a lot of those. And our aims there from the herbarium side were to honour that request from the Mildura City Council, but also to engage some regional Victorians with their state botanical collection. Thanks to Eileen's very endearing and quotable set of letters that we house at the herbarium, she would write to the herbarium when she was collecting to send specimens in to confirm their identification, and then they'd be sent back to her. It was quite easy to engage people in her life and her story. She's really charming. We've got dozens and dozens of these quotes, and the problem with putting together her this exhibition about her was having to cut so many great things that we wanted to include. But we also wanted to give people a more hands-on opportunity to engage with Eileen's collection. And so we launched a Digivol expedition, and I'm going to get expedition and exhibition confused. I'll say that in advance. Alongside, so we had the expedition alongside the exhibition. And Digivol, as most of you will know, is an online crowdsourcing transcription platform developed by the Atlas of Living Australia and the Australian Museum. So usually expeditions on Digivol are visible for any users to access and transcribe, but because we wanted to really target the local community, we didn't want the sort of hundreds of thousands of dedicated Digivol volunteers around the world just jumping in and transcribing everything overnight. So the project was live, but it wasn't on the homepage, so you could only access it via the link. So this enabled us to control, to some extent, who accessed it. So in the exhibition interps, we included a QR code that would take people, there was a separate interps panel that talked about digitisation, and below it was this QR code so people could access that. There was also a flyer that people had to ask for at reception, because being COVID times, apparently we weren't allowed to have pieces of paper because someone might touch it but not take it. So it was all very, the COVID precautions in this exhibition were quite extreme. We also ran 3 in-person Digivol events, so we could sort of sit with people and talk them through the process, because they weren't people who had been independently motivated to go and do this transcription, so we wanted to make sure that they felt supported in doing it. So we ran these at a local community centre. Admittedly, the turnout for these was really low, which was sort of disappointing in some regards, but probably, again, a bit of a factor of COVID times. But the people who did come along were really, really engaged, and we had a wonderful time with them, some fantastic conversations. They were so engaged that 3 people managed to transcribe about 90% of Eileen's collection. Most of those people under the technical officers there, or probably about half of them, are herbarium staff just testing it out. But given that we were essentially recruiting new Digivol volunteers, like I said, who hadn't been independently motivated to do it, and we weren't harnessing the expertise of experienced Digivol transcribers and georeferencers, I thought it might be a good idea to create a little reference map of some of Eileen's most frequent collecting localities, just to sort of ensure some consistency in the georeferencing so it wasn't being approached by too many different angles. But that in itself was challenging because Eileen's descriptions were sometimes hyperlocal. So there's sometimes coded localities, descriptions, references to places that either don't exist anymore, have changed their name, or were never going to be on any map to begin with. So I did the sensible thing and I asked for help, this time of the local historical society, the Red Cliffs and District Historical Society. So I emailed them a list of, and this is probably about a third of it, it was about 3 pages long, of some of the locality descriptions that I was having trouble pinpointing. And within 24 hours, I received back heavily annotated descriptions, personal recollections, all sorts of information about those localities with input from 3 different people. So they were so keen to be involved, and it was a really fruitful relationship with that historical society, because as much as they were able to provide me with lots of local knowledge that helped interpret the scientific specimens, I also had a lot of information from Eileen's letters that gave them information that they hadn't seen before. So just as an example, this is the map that I put together, and I'll just go into this example here of 16th Street by Ginkram Avenue. So Eileen's label says Irrimpul, corner of 16th Street and Ginkram Avenue, but if you look on a contemporary map, Ginkram Avenue doesn't intersect with 16th Street. But they were able to explain that, well, it used to all be called Ginkram Avenue, but then when the highway got redirected, which it happened about 4 times, then the other side of Ginkram Avenue became Goldthorpe Avenue. And so this meant we could georeference that specimen with about 100 metres uncertainty radius instead of the probably 1.5 that we were going to have to give it. Another example is this Calder Highway, RC's Redcliff's, almost opposite Central SS. And I was thinking maybe that's a service station. I didn't know what that was. Turns out that was a state school which has been renamed Redcliff's Primary School. So without that local knowledge, we could only guess at where that might be. Now, that process of engaging the Historical Society was valuable in and of itself, but it was unexpectedly enhanced by the Digivol transcribers. So we had examples like this one where Dee's paddock, what's that? But they knew that it'd be Davies paddock. Exact location can't be determined, so we couldn't pinpoint it exactly on a map, but they did provide it within potentially like a couple of city blocks. So again, really useful to get that local knowledge. Now, just to finish up, I want to reiterate that our other aim was to connect people in the region with their state herbarium. And I firmly believe that amid all the challenges that we face in collections care, often with under-resourced collections, not fit for purpose buildings, overcrowded facilities, I do think that one of our biggest challenges is obscurity. And I know for us at the herbarium that sits within a botanic gardens, and I'm sure others have had this experience, the number of times we hear people walk past and point to the building and say, oh, that's where they grow the herbs. That having people understand what a herbarium is and its role and value is, I think, really key to addressing all of those other collections care challenges. We need people to value what we do before they invest in us. People, by their nature, value things that they have, that they care about or can relate to or have some personal resonance with. And seeing transcriber notes like this one that evoked a really lovely childhood memory, I think makes me really confident that both of our aims with this outreach program of actually helping increase the scientific utility of the specimens by georeferencing them better, but also getting people to engage with and appreciate and care about their state herbarium, I think we managed to fulfill them both. So thank you. I do just want to say a big thanks to my colleague Namal Karanajira, who did a lot of the admin work around the Digivol expedition. It certainly wasn't one that saved us time. It was very much an outreach project, not a time-saving project. To the staff at the Mildura Arts Centre who helped put on the exhibition, the Historical Society and all the Digivol volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes our morning session. We will reconvene again at 11 after the coffee. If you're interested in t-shirts, though, you should hang out for a second for my public service announcement. We got notification that t-shirt sales will reopen now during coffee time. I just checked. I can purchase a t-shirt. They will be mailed to you, so feel free to purchase a t-shirt, but they will only be open till today by the end of sessions this afternoon. So if you want a t-shirt, this is your last chance to purchase one through Oxford Abstracts. Just go into this year's conference and select add-ons and add on your t-shirt and preferred size. Thank you. See you at 11.